the road in Logan, Ohio. So without any further ado or speech making or attempted speech making, we're going to get rolling. You guys go ahead and start. And please speak at the microphone.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Good morning to all. It's a challenge being the first to speak this morning, but I think it's better on the other hand, because then we get done and we relax. But thank you for this opportunity to sit and present our case to you. Our visit was to Logan, and we went to the Logan Hawking Times, a community publication that serves the people of Logan, a small town, which we were not ready for. But when we got there, we enjoyed every minute of our stay. The publication was established as an online publication just in the middle of COVID. So Debbie narrated the story to us that when they left their prior employer, they had to make a decision and say, are we setting up a newspaper? What are we doing? So the decision was that they will set up a publication, which is what they did with a couple of her colleagues who left the entity as well. In 2020, they set up an online platform first, from where they published the publication. And then in August 2021, they made a decision to print the actual copies of the newspaper. It's a weekly publication, and it's distributed by her and her family throughout the town and in neighboring smaller areas as well. And every Friday without fail, they do that. So we got to see that live, and we participated in that exercise, and we thoroughly enjoyed that. But the main thing when it comes to a publication is how you generate revenue. And from what we saw there also was that revenue is generated through online subscriptions and through advertisements that they get online and through print. And what is also interesting is that, and what we've been discussing throughout the 2 weeks that we've been here, was that they also do contract publishing, which is where they do jobs from clients who commission them to do publications and flyers and pamphlets for them. So it was quite interesting for them for us to see that what we have been speaking about in class is something that practically is being done by a couple of publishers in the US. When it comes to the team that Debbie has in the office, it's a team of 7 individuals. Now, we do have a video where she will explain further about who those people are. But what is interesting there too, which applies to us most, is that she is the only one who's full-time in the business. And I think that applies to most of us, where we do have freelancers, what we call freelancers, and then, but the bulk of the work remains with us. So that's the same. The same applies to her there as well. Peter can just add and comment on that slide.
Yeah, kind greetings, everyone. Just to add on Debbie, it's such an amazing person, and the dedication to community journalism is just similar to us in here. And she's the only full-time worker there in her business. And she doesn't draw a salary as well. She's trying to build up revenue to keep the business going. The rest of the staff gets, example, like the advertisers, they get 30% commission, which is a good model. Yeah, so.
And then we'll just briefly take you through the process of compiling the edition. When we came there, we came on a Saturday, and our work started on a Saturday, in the sense that we went around with her. We saw the environment. So from Saturday, when we landed in Logan, we got to be taken around, which we enjoyed. and we went to the lake. We had a cookout and we took photos, and he will explain further what he did also. But on the Tuesday, because we had deadlines for our publications, we only started work on Tuesday. So Debbie had compiled a dummy of her publication, and then she started looking for articles to feature in that week's publication. And then those articles were sent to the paginator, something which we call a layout artist, a person who does the layout for our publications. And then at the office, we had a lady who did adverts. So I sat with her for a couple of hours to see how she designs her ads. She's using freehand Photoshop. I'm saying freehand. She's using Photoshop for the ads, and it's what I saw there. One thing I picked up was that she's using the latest version of Photoshop, and it's a dream. You just place things and it just runs for you. So she did show me a couple of tips on how to do some of the things when it comes to designing ads. And then once the publication is compiled, she then goes through the whole draft. And I know she said to us, I didn't sleep because I was going through the publication to make sure that when it goes to the printer, the final edition, final copy is right. So once it's sent to the copy, then she relaxes. In between this week, I think we went out almost every day, whether we went for cookout, we went for lunch, we went for dinner, but we were able to just visit friends and family also during this time. And then on the Friday, we woke up, we got T-shirts and turkeys and caps, and we did the distribution of the newspaper. And her partner, Bob, collects the paper about 2 hours away at the printers in Columbus, and then he brings it back, and then they just, amongst themselves, they say, you take these copies, and they know the route that they take. So we went with Debbie and we distributed copies for those areas that she does. I think it took us about 3 to 4 hours. But the one thing I picked up there also was, it's about the community for Debbie and for Logan Hawking Times. Wherever she went, she didn't just drop the copies. We went there, we spoke to the people who were dropping the copies to. It was just a sense of family, which we found to be existing in Logan Hawking. More than anything else, the paper is loved by the community in that area. You can add there, Peter.
The paper is almost like, not almost, it gives hope to residents of Logan, and it's more similar to our publications. It's amazing that what she's doing, it's almost the same with what we're doing, especially in distribution, where you get bundles of your newspaper. If there's 100 copies in there, and then you got to count like, oh, this place is not so busy, I think they need 10 copies, so you don't waste. So she does that. When the papers comes and Bob brings it and she counts them, like 25 a bundle, she keeps it next to her seat. And I mean, then we started driving and dropping off on key points. That was really amazing, and it's something that we also do, reaching out to the grassroots and making sure that the paper is there and it's really at the spot it should be. Yeah, and like Maddie said, that she's very passionate about the community. She's lived there all her life. And when she saw the area becoming like what we call a news desert almost, because the rival publication, it's almost covers like press releases. I remember when we participated, as Maddie said, we started working when we were like there on day one. As much as we were guests, but we sprang to work immediately, covering the Memorial Day and taking photographs. It was amazing to be part of the community fiber, and it's easy for us as journalists, as publishers, to easily integrate in to get the story. And we met amazing people on Memorial Day, and when we were coming back from the cemetery, Debbie sent us the sheriff. Was it the sheriff?
It was the
To come
sheriff.
look for us, thinking that we are lost. So there's that closeness in there. Yeah.
Yeah, and these are just the processes of news gathering that we saw there. It's writers who collect and submit articles to her. She also does the bulk of the work. She writes most of the articles. And some people walk in. We did see a couple of people coming into the office saying, I might have a story for you. Would you? I think it would be good for Logan Hawking Times to cover it. So we saw that. And yes, she did get press releases and notices as well, which were sent by email. And the one thing that we picked up was it was mostly stories, obviously, from the area, Logan, and which is important, I think, when we do our publications. And this is what I saw also, that when you do your publication, do local stories. You can't cover the whole province, for instance, where I come from. I can't say I'm provincial. I have to say I am in Durban in a specific area. And that is exactly what we saw there. That photo was taken when we were at the commissioners.
At the commissioners.
It was on a Thursday.
Thursday.
Yeah, so we said we went to the commissioner, who's our friend now, one of the commissioner. It's Sandy Ogle and her daughter, Sandy Sue.
Yeah.
And she invited us to come, but I think every Thursday they do go to get stories from the commissioner's office. And we went in, they did whatever was done. And then there was a time when we had to come out because there was a presentation by the sheriff and his deputy.
Yeah.
So we had to come out, and then we took that photo as we were sitting there. So that was also part of news gathering.
There was a discussion, which we could say it's in camera. So the commissioners, the meetings that happen at the commissioner, we try to understand how does it work. And we were thinking it's in South Africa. We were thinking it could be like the legislature or the national parliament, or say the municipal sub-council meetings. It's similar to that, but this is from the county. There's a commissioner, and they have these meetings. I think they approve budgets and for sewage and all that, and it's open to the public. And she attends these meetings every day, and it's every once a week, and it's in the paper. And she goes with that young lady there. She's a student here, by the way, studying journalism.
Yes.
And she gets paid. She gets remunerated for her work while also studying, while also gaining the experience. And I think that's the most beautiful thing, imparting knowledge to her while she's studying. So it was quite enlightening, and to be there, to see people that care about their community there, and to see their local community newspaper present there. And this is the things that we do in our communities, attending a meeting that you might think it's irrelevant, but it's relevant for a street in that township, for example. Sometimes just being present means a lot. And that's what we notice in Logan. She's everywhere, and people love that. People would just rock up at her office and just start chatting for several hours.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and this was on a Friday. I think the photos tell the whole story. We woke up early. She picked us up early. And when we got into the car each morning, we would say, "Hi, Debbie, how are you?" And she'd say, "Just peachy." And then we knew the day was gonna go well. So here also we were preparing the newspapers had come. Bob had dropped them off at the office, and Debbie's counting them there on the photo on the left. And then this was when we were going to Kroger.
This is Kroger.
Yeah, the middle photo is when we were dropping off photos at Kroger. So all the copies that she drops off are counted physically. She knows how many copies are left there. And she says in some of the places she would drop off copies in the morning, and maybe by lunchtime or a day after, the copies are finished. And that is how communities respond to her publication. And then that was inside the shop.
Oh, this is on Monday. It was a very exciting day for us to see how patriotic the citizens are here, and they say an allegiance to the national flag. And it was quite amazing. It was quite an enriching experience. You're gonna see it all in a video, a detailed video, curated for you guys to see our experiences there. We bring the Logan terms closer to the auditorium here. And what you see here, it's an interview with a retired US Army trainer, Inate Halos. I think he served in the Korean Army. I mean, he was a trainer. He trained nurses and doctors. Quite a nice story. But what I learned from this mostly was because of Davy, people would just come, and when they knew who we were, they would point out, you see that guy? This is so, this is what he's done. If it wasn't for being friendly and being pleasant around people, I don't think people would just walk to us and say, this guy did this guy did this. But yeah, we were given a nice intro, and yeah, and it was easy for us to get to know who we should include in our interviews. The gentleman over there standing at the cemetery, he stated that he was deployed in South Africa to, yeah, but when I looked up on the internet, when I started fact checking him, it didn't show anyway. So I cut out those things. The year didn't make sense, and he said he was there, he fought the war. When I checked the war is never captured anywhere. So I removed that because there was no evidence. I didn't like to say the he said, she said story. But that 90-year-old one, I mean, when I looked up, it made sense. And then there was also an amazing guy that served in, the same guy after he went to Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, experiencing the desert. And when he was telling these things and you write about them, and you see him being there supporting his sisters and those in service, it was just an amazing experience to write about these things and to be in the Logan Times, the paper that people love in the area, the things that we do back home. But here they just have support of their readers as well.
And then this is the article that I did. It's the interview was specifically with the gentleman, the old guy, the Howdy Shells. He had served in the army and he was a mechanic. So he traveled all over in most of the countries that we mentioned in the article. But I think what just like what Peter is saying, it's the way they recognize the day for us, which was very important to see how people from all walks of life honored the day, the Memorial Day. So here he brought his whole family. It was 4 generations of the Howdy Shells. The little baby there was also part of the day. And I think when one of the speakers at the cemetery was saying that, he said, we mustn't say it was a celebration of Memorial Day, but commemoration of the day in remembrance of those who had passed. And I think that is something which stood out for us on the ground. But as also Peter is saying, we would not have done these articles had they not known about the times, the Logan Hawking Times.
Yeah.
So the question then is, what is the winning formula for Logan Hawking Times? What does Debbie do differently that makes her publication stand out from all the others? Because there is another publication that circulates there, and it's the same publication that she left to start her publication. I think one thing which we must, the first thing is just the fact that local content plays a huge role in the publication. As we have explained, we've got copies of the publication here. We will have a look at them. And that also the other thing is she is quite experienced in the media sector. She started way back. She was in California, I think, and she ran magazines. She ran a couple of publications. So that experience she has taken now, and she took the leap, and she then started her own publication. And I think that for us is a winning formula, because it's the same thing that we do in our country, and it works for us. And also the fact that she has a close relationship with people in the town.
And just to add on what Mbari has just said, the winning formula, it's also based on her product, which is news. She's in the business of news. And what struck us most was when she said she's passionate about the community. And in another community, crime is there. And there could be murders there, she said there could be murders. She doesn't neglect that. She does cover that. She highlights the most, let's say, the most positive things in the community while not neglecting the negative things. I think that's really a cool thing for a community media to do, not to promote the negative stories on page one and bury the soft stories inside, like you see in the tabloids. And she's really serving as a community newspaper. And we have learned a lot, me and my colleague Barry.
Sorry.
Yeah, also to add on to that was she's proud of doing human interest stories, local audience and engagement. And that along brings subscription as well. It's that's part of a winning formula.
Yeah, in a nutshell, this is what we did in Logan. There could have been 10 more slides to cover the things that we did in Logan, but we just picked these photos which explain what we did. We had fun, and I think this relates to our work that we did. Have fun when we are doing your work. Don't do work because you are forced. You have to wake up and say, oh, today, do something which you enjoy. And it's not always about money. And as my colleague said, Debbie doesn't do it for money. She lives a relatively comfortable life, yes, but she did also say it to us. It's not about money. It's about the love she has for her community and for sharing news and for sending out news to the community. Narrow down your focus, you know. As Peter, he fished there, he only got 3 fish for the first time.
First time.
But he didn't go for the big fish, he just went for the small ones.
Yeah.
Narrow down your focus. So he focused on the small fish. So I think that is what we need to also do. Get your area right. If you know serve your market. It's just basically it. Know your market and serve them right. And be consistent. Every Friday without fail, Bob says, I'm going to pick up the paper, and Bob woke up and he does that without fail. And they do that consistently. It might be a repetitive, but I think what I saw there is they enjoy doing it because it's a routine that is part of their lives. It's not something which they do out of, they just do it because they love it. And make time for your readers. I think we've explained that enough. People come to the office. There was a lady we spoke to. We had to explain the map of South Africa to her now. She spent almost 45 minutes in the office. More than that. And a couple of people came there. But we must make time for our readers. And I think that is maybe what some of us do when we're back home, that readers make our publications. It's not the other way around. And I think that's the lesson we got here when in the first week, that ask them what they want instead of sending the message across. It must be from them to us so that you get the right combination of what you need to do for your publication. And I think on that note,
that's much more into you just really summed up well.
Oh, okay. On that
Could
note,
you talk a little bit about your experience shadowing Rachel, the intern?
we got to know Rachel on the Wednesday, I think.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah. Oh, but we did go with her on the Monday.
We went with her on Monday.
On Monday.
On the Memorial Day. Yeah, we really felt comfortable with her, and I think she knows what she's doing. She was a photographer Logan Times. Debbie had already the main story, and we knew she was there, but we also had to work to get different angles of the same event, because it's one event, but there's different angles, different human interest stories. But it was really great to work alongside her.
And she did mention that she's a student
She's
here,
a student,
and that Professor Bill recommended her to Debbie. That is why she comes to work there over the holidays, and she does articles. And yeah, no, we got to know her. She explained herself to us.
I mean, she's an intern, but Debbie treats her like something.
Yes.
And that helps, that raises the confidence for the intern to perform better than expected.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that is the last slide, and then the last one is where we give our details there. I think from here we are going to play a video, because what we are capturing here as in the presentation is very brief compared to the experience, the overall experience with the owner of Logan Hawking Times. So if we just ask Bill to play that video for us, thank you.
And it might be good to turn off all the lights. For this one.
I used to work for another publication in the area, and I quit in September 2020. 2 months later, I found myself like really uneasy because I don't like to sit still. I needed something to do. And so I said I was going to start a paper. So we started at my house, in my dining room, around my dining room table. I had called Rebecca Hedges, that I had worked with before, and asked her if she wanted to help, and she says, I'm down, count me in. She came in, and we sat there and threw ideas out. We had no money, and that was the first thing that she asked me is, how are we going to do this? Do you have money? No, I have no money, but we can do this because I've done it before. So she says, okay, so what are we going to do? We said, well, we're going to start out with online. I want to do a print, but we can't do that right now. So we're going to do online. And so we sat there and I said, I need advertising. And we're going to need subscriptions. And so, and we had no equipment. I worked with an old beat up laptop that had been thrown in the trash can, pulled back out of the trash can. And Rebecca, my son, gave us a really old, heavy, big laptop to work with. And we now start selling ads. And we went online, got a company, a host to do the website and put things online. We put our stories online. We put our ads online, and we got started, and then we started selling subscriptions, and they came in really fast. Subscriptions did. We started November 20th, 2020. We went online, and on August 27th of 2021, we published our very first print paper. And we got sponsors. It's free. We got sponsors for the online obits and for the print paper. Dan Carderas does that for us. He has Carderas Funeral Home here in Logan. And he's been really generous. He's been with us from day one. So we don't charge for obits. We don't charge for the cake. So I have 7 people working for me. I have Rebecca Hedges, who is head of advertising. I have Nicole Van Bever, who is also a ad rep. She's also my granddaughter. I have Lucy Bersham, who does all the graphic work. She's part-time. I have Rachel Yount, who is a journalism student at OU. And this is her third summer of working with me. And she's doing a great job. She always does a great job. And then Craig Dunn is the sports editor. He just started Craig Dunn was the sports editor. And he passed away. He retired in March, passed away just last week. Kevin Dunnigan took his place once he retired. And I've worked with Kevin before. And then Mariah Bond is the paginator. She puts everything together every week for us. So, and I got Lucy. Yes, she does all the graphics. So, but there's, yes, and Bob. I can't forget Bob. Bob Conkle. He does. He goes and gets the paper at 4:30. He gets up at 4:30 on Fridays. Drives to Columbus, gets the paper, and brings it back. When he brings the paper back, then he takes what he needs for his route. I take what I need for my route. I sort them all out, depending on where I take them. So they're ready for me to grab when I get out of the car. They're distributed throughout Hocking County. Laurelville, the flea market on 33, and then down through town and on the outskirts of town. So I do all that myself. Bob and I do all the distribution. 7 employees that I have. The 2 ad reps, Rebecca and Nicole, they are on commission only. The others get paid by the hour. As far as a whole, the majority of our revenue goes to salaries. And then we have printing is the next biggest. And then we have all of our programs. Like we have our server host for our website is a company out of New York called Our Hometown. And that costs $279 a month. And then, you add on top of that, all of the other programs that we have, it's like 150 here, 200 here, it all adds up. So when you're talking about the dynamics of the revenue coming in versus what's going out, the biggest majority of salaries, then printing, and then the programs that we use, and rent and utilities is at the bottom of that.
With any business, there are challenges. Can you name just 1 or 2 challenges that you've encountered, especially because you came from an environment where you were employed and now you're running a business, which you are starting from scratch?
Challenges, making sure the revenue is there. That's the biggest challenge. I mean, we have good months and bad months, just like you guys do. January, February, March, not good. So you still have those bills, but you don't have the revenue that you have coming in May, June, July, August and September. So we have to supplement our revenue some way. So we do things like we do a fair book, and we do a Finding Faith book, and the fair book is once a year. The Finding Faith is like once every 2 to 3 years. We do Urban Air every year. It's an event that comes downtown. We do brochures twice a year. We do one in the spring, one in the fall. So we try to find ways to bring more revenue in. Like, okay, December, we had, we wanted to do an event involving the kids. I wanted to give to a charity. It's called Shop at the Cop. So we had pizza with Santa. Our first year we're doing it, pizza with Santa. I have friends that play Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus every year. So I cornered them, asked them if they'd be willing to help. They said yes. I got a place to hold the event. I got a hold of all of the pizza places in town. They all donated 6 pizzas. One donated 8 pizzas. We ended up with 42 pizzas. We ended up with over 100 kids and their families came with them. We had games set up. All the food, cookies, we had like probably 400 or 500 cookies, you know, that people had donated. Homemade, all homemade. All the drinks were donated. So the kids came in, they played games, they got to sit on Santa's lap, but we sold sponsorships. That's how we did it. We sold sponsorships from $1,000 down. And people said, yes, we'll do it. Yes, we'll do it. Yes, we'll do it. We brought in enough money to pay everybody for working, to, we ran out of juice. We had to go buy more to pay for that. We ended up giving money to Shop with a Cop, a donation to Shop with a Cop, so they could do more kids, you know. So we ended up really, really good for that event. But we have to think of ways. So when our revenue's down, that's the biggest challenge is revenue, making sure that there's enough. So when the revenue, when we know it's going to be down, we got to come up with something. We have to come up with something. So when we start thinking, we all sit down, we all have a say so in it. It's not just me, it's not just Rebecca and Nicole, it's all of us together. Anybody that's involved in Logan Hockey Times, we sit down as a group and we make decisions together. So Shop with a Cop, the pizza with Santa, that was a fantastic, you know, event. And so we're doing it again this year and people have already committed to it. And it's only what, June? Yeah, and people have already committed to it. So you have to be on top of the game when it comes to the revenue. And you guys know that. I mean, you guys know that, you know, you have to be on top of everything. And you have to think outside the box sometimes to overcome the challenge of, am I gonna have enough money to pay, you know, pay everything this month, you know?
Being hands-on, how has it helped you connect with your readers?
Oh, since I grew up here, you know, and I know everyone. Bob always jokes around and says, is there someone in town that you don't know? Because every time we go someplace, someone stops me and talks to me about something. So the personal one-on-one, I think is very important because people see me in the community, not only delivering papers, but they see me at meetings, they see me at events. You know, I'm like the person they see the most out of everybody here. We all worked together before, most of us worked together before. And so people got to know us as that other publication, but now they know all of us as Logan Hockey Times. And by us having that personal connection with the community, it has helped us tremendously, you know, because people come in the office and they'll come in sometimes and they'll have a story idea, or they want an ad, or they just want to come in and say hi to us, you know, which is, you know, really nice. We had one lady that came in, she comes in every Friday, gets paper, never misses. And one day I was out delivering papers, I come back and there's this big box of cupcakes sitting on the counter, and I said, where'd this go from? And we don't know her name, but she comes in every Friday and she says, I just want to do something nice for you guys. So she brought us in cupcakes, you know. So it's really good to connect to the community, to have that bond and friendship, because they are lacking, they were lacking something that the other publication couldn't give them, and that is the local hometown news. What's going on in Logan? What's going on in Hocking County? You know, it's, we do the I call them feel-good stories, you know, they're just human interest stories. I like doing those. I like covering things like we covered on Monday, the Veterans Days, you know. those things are important to people. Graduation is important to people. That's why my stories are so big, because we put the speeches in. We put, for graduation and for Memorial Day, because there's people that didn't get out to go to graduation or didn't go to Memorial Day. With my paper, it's like they're there because they can read the speeches. So that's why it's important to connect with everyone, because we have something that they need and want. The more I'm out in the community, the more I'm talking to people, the more interaction I have with people when I'm delivering papers. But it takes me so long to deliver papers on Friday, is because some people want to stand around and talk. Some of them just say, don't have time to talk, and they wave and, that's it. But it's really, really important. I think that's to be connected to the community. That's where you're going to get all of your stories. That's where you're going to get your support for your revenue and everything is from the community. So that connection with them is very important.
And I think that connection for you has brought on good results. And one of them is the award, or a couple of awards that the newspaper has received. Tell us about it.
We weren't going to do it. It's called the Hooper Awards. It's for the Ohio newspaper, the Ohio News Media Association. And I have several friends that work there. And Jason is one of them. And he called me and he says, we haven't received anything for the Hooper Awards yet from you. And I said, I'm not going to do it. He goes, yeah, you are. No, I'm not. He said, yeah, you are. He said, because you need to do that, because you'll win. And I said, no, I don't think so. So he says, well, if you don't do it, we're going to do it for you. Okay. So Lucy and I sit down, we pick stories, headlines. What they look for is certain stories, headlines, best feature, best column, photos, things like that, and they have a set of judges that are not connected with necessarily newspapers. So it's a fair thing, they read the stories, they judge them and everything. So we did that. It was I think it was October, we had to have everything set in. We didn't hear from them until March. And it was right before the awards. And I told Lucy, I said, well, we must not have won anything because I haven't heard from them. But one of the things that Jason told me was enter your website. I said, why? Because you have the best website ever. And I said, no. And he says, yeah, you do. You need to enter. And he kept just keep up, and telling me about it. So we had entered the website and a ton of other things. And so that afternoon, the same afternoon, I said, Lucy, we must not won. I got a message from Jason who said, hey, you won 5 awards. First year that we've done this, we won 5 awards. Wow. So we're team sports related. One was for the website, and 2 was for stories. So one was for ad layout. So yeah. So I was just like, no way. In 5 years, I see this paper being basically the only paper in Hocking County. I see it growing to the point where we're going to have our own building in the heart of downtown. We're going to own the building, and we're going to have a bigger staff than what we have now. We're going to have full-time people. We're going to have an editor. We're going to have someone in billing. We're going to have someone doing subscriptions. We're going to have all of this. This is what the vision I see in 4 or 5 years.
For the sake of time, I have to skip these levels. We'll do the quick run through. I think you have time for a few questions.
Oh, yes, we do.
Wait, he's got to get the microphone going. We'll start.
Just a process issue, not something, it's a boring process issue.
Can we get all the presentations so that we can send them immediately to people?
Some of them are very fresh. So as soon as they are converted to PDF and of a size that can be transmitted, they will be.
Fantastic, thanks so much.
Julie Stein.
Good morning. Thanks, colleague, that's a presentation. I'm a money man. I want to know, because you say they're making money from print advert and also the online. So which one, obviously, these two things are not making the equal money. Which one is giving more revenue than that?
From what she said, from what Debbie said, obviously they started with online. So the clients that have been online, most of them are still there possibly, and they have new ones. And when they started the publication, then that added revenue. We can't say exactly like the figures, but maybe in a percentage, I think it's more print than online, because the value of online ads is different when it comes to the actual monetary terms. But I think it's mostly print which is making money for it. Mr. Moneyman.
Yes, thank you, Bo. I don't have a question, but I want to make a comment, and I think it's about what's really inspirational about the work that you did, and the host, Debbie, whose publication I think is the source of that inspiration. And I want to link that to the truncated introduction that Bill gave us this morning. Both of you used metaphors. The truncated metaphor of Bill was the garlic harvest that he had yesterday. And the metaphor that you used was the small fish that Peter caught. And I think the lesson from that is twofold. One is that you plan and you harvest for the long term. And the other message is that you focus not microscopically, but you focus locally, so that the real connection between yourself and your community is not lost in the larger, bigger noise of the forest. And that to me is essentially what binds us as AIP members, because we are local community publishers. And as much as my own newspaper, we have aspirations for a global audience, I'm constantly reminded that we are rooted in a local community, and that those roots should remain firm, and we should never forget that. So thank you for your presentation, for reminding us.
Thank
So Julie has a
Thank you guys for a great presentation. I'm not surprised with Peter involved. But I have questions. I don't know if you'll be able to answer if Debbie's on the line. I noted that she said subscriptions came first. So I'd like to know what how they went about that. What is it that they did? Because I'm also fascinated by the fact that, well, we started pretty much at the same time during COVID, and we are also thinking of also adding a print edition. I'd like to also, if you could hook up, have another conversation with her. But what is it that helped them? And also, but why did they see the need to have print after starting successfully online?
I think I will answer the second question, and maybe, as you say, you can talk to Debbie on the side. I think for the print edition, it was the demand from people. People were wanting to see. She did say at one stage when we were having a chat that they wanted to feel the paper. Yes, it was online, but she was saying the community they serve has an age, that age which is more mature. So they wanted to get the feel of the paper. And that is why they opted to then try and push for a print edition. But I think she did say initially, they wanted to print, but because of revenue challenges, they opted for the online version first. So when the opportunity came and the finances were there, they were able to then move to the original plan of moving into print.
One more question.
Oh,
No, we have time for one more question.
oh, okay. If there are no questions, are we time?
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. We have a very short little break before the next presentation. Please be here and seated at 10.
Okay.
Wow.
Thank you.
What
Doing and Daily, I'm making edits on your thing right now. I'm making the edits right now. On your presentation, there's some typos and stuff like that.
Yeah. That was a nice part. And to actually hear from, Peter Tan. Okay. Tina ke behamba sodwa. Sithini ke?
You are your own lady.
Yeah, that was awesome. And you still timed it very well. They still timed it very well, the video, you can see.
Yeah. Last time I was supposed to be on the last.
Was that Kabbalah? Yeah. Yeah, look, I only realized in Dover, I'm the second one. I thought it was exactly the way. Yo, I've got to work to do so.
Hi, Bo. Hi. Just a quick one. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah.
Ooh. That wouldn't be accessible to you because you're not a student. You would either have to go to the quick care clinic at Holzer with quick care, there's quick care. John, is there a quick care that you can recommend? Chris wants to have his cough checked out.
Okay, so there's also where I've been many times.
Mhm.
So, and then I think there's one close to Siemens.
Yeah, there's one down at the bottom of the hill in Union. That one's actually blocked. That's just like Union down all the way down the hill. Go another block or so, it'll be on the left. Yeah. So Union Street is the one in the front of the school.
Okay.
You go out the front door, you're on Union Street, hang a right, keep going, you go past the stores, shops and everything, down the hill.
Yeah.
It'll be on the left.
So.
I'm not sure what it's called, but it's a quick care clinic, so that it's a cash business.
All right, thank you.
Is it not a-
Perfect, yeah. I'll go to lunch, yeah.
Things are coming in, come in tonight. Some of them are also like ridiculously. So it's okay.
Whenever.
Oh, is that what is that?
You know, right now, I got it, what's this? This is 2020, so I got it last year, ne? Do you know which Benchinja? Oh, no, not that. Do you know which Benchinja? Benchinja, I didn't see that I had. Almost. And they're gonna let go. I'm going to have maybe, I don't know.
Whoa.
Some bills are pretty small. I think in fact, well, no,
This is the.
no, I shouldn't because the businesses are covered because then.
Yes.
The collaboration is not actually, because the reason I have.
Yeah. Can it wait until lunch? I'm really hard on deadline.
Or if they're not, we'll talk to you in lunch.
Because some of us, when we're great, it's not a great alone in the house, everybody wants to.
That challenge. My son, let me just confirm what you're saying. I think people think I came to make money. My son, it's only giving problems. What was happening?
You know, this is the engine. This is the engine. And then it's around 3 blocks. 4 blocks.
Inzima,
Just grammatical error.
Two spelling errors.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Just mention about this.
If I have a question for you, I'll leave
The one you mentioned.
But that's simple and straightforward.
Sorry?
I said it's simple.
No, that's fine. I'm just doing, like, if there's a fact error and you can correct it, I'll just let you know right now. I'm just doing well.
That's right. Just keep going on meaning. You know, till you hit till you see the symmetry. And then write across the symmetry. But if you. All right. It's around. No.
Oh, please. Senator Tracy, Stephen. Can you please unmute?
Yeah, I want to understand that.
I must say
Very
too
high.
much.
Too high. They have said status.
No, it's like.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
They should have been at the end.
Exactly.
Right.
Who?
Bali and
Bali
Peter.
and Peter, we say.
Like, see, they set the bar too high for us.
Oh, good.
All right.
Right.
So, anyone was your vote?
Okay, great.
So, are you okay?
My laces.
Oh. Easy, could you go please remind Shirley and Judy that we're starting? Thank you. And Peter. Okay, well, she'll just have to join us late. Just make sure she doesn't slam the door when she comes in, just, that's okay. All right, next up is Slee, who spent a week in Columbus with Columbus Underground.
Hi, guys. Good morning. Morning, Anne. Hi. I hope she can hear us. Okay. Peter and Sis Mbali have just raised the bar for us, but okay, we can move on here. So I spent a week alone at Columbus Underground, a very cool publication. So I'm going to start with just the quick fast facts on who Columbus Underground is. It is a business and lifestyle online publication, which is in Columbus, Ohio. It was established 22 years ago. In the first 5 years, it was launched as a gig guide for fun things to do in Columbus, Ohio. And at that time, both the founders, Anne and Walker Evans, were working for different companies. And in fact, Anne was not even in a media related sector. She was working for a legal firm. It pitched itself as an alternative to mainstream media, hence there's underground in their name, and it has always been online only. They only started selling ads in 2005 after a friend said to them, you know, what you guys have going there is a good thing and you should consider selling ads. And that is how, and it is also when they started making the transition to working at it full time. Their revenue is split 50% ads and 50% events. And it is run by a team of 8 people. 7 of those people are permanent and 1 is on contract. The one person who's on contract and actually shared a story that they got, I think it is a government grant, which is like what at home we call a workplace, integrated workplace. And so the government pays 75%, or that grant pays 75% of the salary, and then they chip in with the 25%. And what having that resource has done for them specifically is it is someone, well, much younger than the rest of the team. And what they then did was they asked him to help them grow their TikTok. And I think they said when he came in, they said, if you can maybe get us to 1,000 followers by the end of summer. They were at 300, but he got them to that 1,000 within 2 weeks. He does great videos. He does amazing stuff for the social media, but especially on TikTok. Because for me, well, I will talk about the takeaways, but the one thing that I remember that struck out as I heard that story was, you know, the fact that you need not necessarily know how to make it work yourself with it, because, you know, I think I'm above 40, and I think those of us who are my age and above probably relate better to Facebook. That is what we knew first. TikTok, I'm not even on TikTok, just even with a personal account. I don't get TikTok. I laugh at some of the videos that end up, you know, in my inbox, but I wouldn't know how to get us onto TikTok if I had to do it. But I think looking at an option of a younger person, and I think the conversations as well that we had about perhaps looking at collaborations with university students, probably you could just bring in, you know, a student just to help you with TikTok and maybe just social media and not other things. And then, but they also do have a pool of freelancers and stringers who contribute. One very important thing, and I'll talk about it now because I know I didn't mention it. I have signed it. Because, you know, guys, I've told you the story. I'm going to do a story on a South African who runs a food truck here. I have not filed the story yet, but I have signed a contract that clearly stipulates it is Columbus Underground copy. It is their copyright. I will not be paid. I've signed it before I left Columbus. And this is one thing that they ensure. You know, sometimes you think, you know, and we've been burnt, whether you have this friend who can write and who maybe is saying, I'm looking for a side gig. And so you just have a gentleman's agreement and then you get burnt. They don't play with those things. There's a clear contract. As I say, I haven't filed the story yet, but I've signed that contract. And I think it's important, you know, and I'm sure, I don't think they would mind. I'm actually also going to adapt what we use, you know, because it's a very lovely, it's simple, but it covers all the legalities. For example, you also commit, or, you know, you confirm by signing it that you did not plagiarize, you know, yeah, so it's important. Okay, we can move on, thanks. Okay, I pulled this from their website. It's there, I will not really go through all the figures, you can see them, but these are their analytics. And it is on the website as part of their advertising kit. So a potential advertiser sees this, and I think it's important to be transparent, where people know exactly that if they come to you, this is what they are going to be getting. This is what they are going to be buying. And I'll talk a little bit later on about how they push back against people who say, oh, but your rates are higher than Google Ads. Because I think when you have this and you know for a fact that these are the numbers, you are able to push back, but there's more that they use to push back. So these are their numbers. They're pretty good numbers, but I think, you do bear in mind, they have been around for 22 years and they know what works for them and they are consistent. We can move on, Bill. You'll also get the presentation. And I was laughing as Sisimbali and Peter were talking because I also couldn't help, but as I was thinking about everything that I experienced at Columbus Underground, and I wanted to capture it in just one sentence. So I went to Google, and I'm going to tell you, Ann and Walker are not into the self-help stuff. So, but as I Googled a quote about consistency, a self-help guru or a coach from a self-help guru is one that resonated with me. And honestly, this, though, as I say there, it best captures how I would, describe the story of Columbus Underground in one sentence, that consistency is what transforms average into excellence. Because over the last 22 years, they have found what works with and for their audience. They keep giving it to them. Inversely, that which after trying, they realize that it doesn't work, they drop. They don't hold on to things unnecessarily. And I admire how they have found a balance to know that, okay, this is not going to work or this is not working, and not be sentimental about it and move on. Because sometimes we want to try and think that maybe we haven't tried long enough. But I think it takes experience to know that, okay, there are clear signs that this is not going to work and we should just cut our losses and move on quickly. And in fact, I think at home, the one company that does that and does it very well, it is Media 24. And apparently it is one thing that goes back at preaches, fail fast. And Media 20, sometimes it comes across as brutal because at their level, of course, it comes with retrenching. But they have that motto at Media 24, fail fast. Okay, we'll move on. All right, this is, I think, we start really getting to the nuts and bolts of it. So I've said, what is it that makes Columbus Underground tick? The best business practices. The first thing for me, I think it is the simplicity of their business model. And again, as was also mentioned by the previous presenters, content is king. And I will sound like a stuck record, but they know what their audience wants and they focus on delivering that. Simple. But here's a sweet spot for Columbus Underground, their events, guys. Whew. I swear, if it wasn't in America, in September, I was going to come back for their Columbus Coffee Festival. That is their main event. I obviously have not experienced it, but I feel like I have based on how they shared about it. This event, Columbus Coffee Festival, this will be their 8th year. And this year they are expecting 8,000 people over 2 days. Like, does Beyonce bring in that? But, so they've been running it for 8 years, and they say each year it actually grows by at least 1,000 people. And they say the very first year they had about 1,000 people. So this is an event where there are coffee roasters, people come in, they taste all the coffees, but how they make money from this? Well, roasters participate, they pay money. People buy tickets to come. They give them a cup that you use as you move from roaster to roaster. They also, I didn't bring, because I already packed, guys, my stuff. So I didn't bring the coffee festival guide, but they also have a coffee festival guide, which they use something similar to this. This is for their property guide. And they profile the roaster. So what you pay for participation. You get to be profiled in this, which is also distributed. And I mean, their events just work. So this is the premier event, but they've also got a dessert event, which is also amazing. Yeah, well, Columbus is about food. I must say, it's one of the things that I really enjoyed. Columbus Underground, food is big. But I want to tell the story of Columbus Coffee Festival during COVID. They could not host events as no one could, but they then still wanted to find a way, to do this. So what they did, you will see the picture in the next slide. They put together a coffee box. Yeah, there it is. A coffee box, and they basically a goodie bag, and they did a drive-through. So people bought tickets buying this stuff, and you would come in, get your goodie bag, and leave. And this was, well, the innovation as a result of COVID-19, but it was so successful that even though the physical event is back, they still do this, because there are people who you may be from Columbus or you may have attended, but you live in another part of the world and you will not necessarily attend the coffee festival in person, but you order this because of space, and they would do more, but they sell 500 of these boxes, the coffee goodie bags. I mean, how amazing is that? And, so we can go back to the previous slide, Bill, thanks. So their events really work, and they have an events director, guys. That's like how big it is. There's someone who's there full-time who is just focused on events. And I think another critical thing to say about their events is it is not dependent on sponsorship. And I think, at home, events generally, when it comes to media companies, and I know from where I also used to work, unless you have a sponsor, we don't really do them. They own their events. It is not dependent on sponsorship. It is dependent on readers buying the tickets. It is dependent on whatever other merchandise that is linked to the events. And this guides and designs them. So they are designed in-house. And so I guess the major thing really would then be the printing, but it is designed in-house. Okay. The third thing for me was the fact that, they maintain good business practices. And this is understanding that you need to keep abreast with what's happening. They rely on Google Analytics, and you need to understand how, in fact, Google Analytics is changing at the end of June. For those who use online, as you go, they keep reminding you. There's a new system that they're adding. I think it's called GA4. They've been looking at that to understand how does it change, or how will it change, and they keep up with those things, and that's important. In the midst of everything that we do, you may sort of brush that aside and say, okay, some other time, because there's so much that you're trying to do, but this is just as critical to your business. And that is whether, I subscribe to things such as the Neiman reports, I subscribe to GemLab, I subscribe to, in fact, the Frey Intermedia newsletter. All those things, they have updates about developments in our industry, and you get ideas. And, and some of them have emails if you want to reach out to some people. So yeah, it's important to do that. And I go back to, they know and understand their audience. But what they do, guys, one of the coolest thing, they do an audience survey every 2 years. So the last one that they did was last year. And do you know how many people responded? They use Google Forms. 800 people responded. Can you imagine? These are people responding to you directly. And it's not, with those kind of things, generally it would be where you live, how old are you, your gender, but they drill down, guys. They ask you if you have a cat or a dog. And when I heard that, I was like rolling my eyes inside thinking, why on earth do they care? Until they explained. If once you've got the feedback and then you start analyzing it, remember we spoke about data yesterday? You start analyzing it and then you discover, oh, actually 60% of the people who responded have dogs. You can then go to someone who sells dog food and say, look, 60% of my readers have dogs. Don't you want to advertise? It started making sense. But they know the level of education, they know it's, I don't know, I think it is probably in some instances much more detailed than a census, you know, and they use Google Forms, which doesn't cost anything. So yeah, and then it is the team. The team are also what really makes this business tick. You know, the founders respect the business. They're as committed to it as they are to meeting their audience's needs. But also I concluded that the team is just as committed and loyal. Both the editor and the senior journalist have been with the publication for 10 years. So this is almost half of the publication's life that they've been there. And you know, there's this thing which we sometimes, I think, especially when it comes to commercial media, we do not value enough anymore. It's called institutional memory. These guys have that. And the things that you can do when you have institutional memory are just unmatched. Because, you know, you've been there. Yes, the team, there's, you know, half of the business that they were not there, but you have people who've been there for half of the business's life. And so, and I think when I remember from yesterday's conversation, from yesterday's panel, you will be able to do those special supplements and those historical things if you've got institutional memory. You're not going to be able to do it with people who are there for 2 years and then they move on, you know. So, and I think for me, it also says something about the environment if people are willing to stay with you that long. These are senior people, competent. In fact, the senior journalist is actually a development expert. So he writes the stuff about property development. That's his area of specialization. And I mean, at our level, guys, to have specialists is really not common. So to be able to do that, yeah. And then, of course, you know, the culture, which is really linked to what I've just spoken about. Honestly, yeah, I've never been in an environment where people, they, what's the phrase? They work hard and play harder. It's that kind of thing. They found a balance. They are really chilled, but they work while being chilled, and it's just positive vibes.
But work first.
But work first, you know. And I mean, I'm a journalist, you know, we know how to read between the lines and distill bullshit. So it wasn't an act because I was there as a visitor. It's just who they are, that I could tell. And importantly, I think it's sifting time wasters. And these are people who ask you for endless meetings without really any intention, though, of buying from your business or supporting you. They have really worked it out with the sales team, how to quickly work out that actually, yes, you may maybe go for that first coffee, but you can tell from that first conversation that I'm not going to do a follow-up coffee with this person. It will not be worth our time and our effort. And I think that is important because sometimes, because we are small publishers, we think, okay, maybe, you know, you keep entertaining someone, but they're really just wasting your time. And then they've also, I think they've mastered the art of partnerships and collaborations. For example, their podcast, they have a podcast, and that's a partnership between the guy who started the podcast and that guy approached them, and they sell ads to the podcast, and then they split the revenue with, I forgot his name, pardon me. And there are other partnerships that they do in between. And I think, you know, you do them within reason, and you also obviously do those that make sense to you. We can move on. Thanks. Yeah, so I tried to do this in, you know, capture Columbus Underground in pics. They really care about food. Food, guys, is big from the content point of view. And of course, well, it becomes a pack when you're there, because generally you get the food. and art, I will not tell you what I thought that was when I first saw it. Suffice to say, I am art illiterate. So, but art is big from a content point of view. I've spoken about the coffee festival and property and development are also big. So one of the other events that they do is this. People pay money and they work with developers and people go through properties viewing in Columbus. People pay money and they do this guide as well. They produce this guide as part of that. So I think for all their events, there's always something cute like this that they do, which is produced in-house. And well, that's the people. And that's the color, blue. That's what the office is like. Yeah, cool and nice. But this is Jenny's ice cream, guys. From the moment I landed in Columbus, they said to me, you had to have Jenny's ice cream. Apparently, it's like the biggest ice cream brand in America.
No, it's not the biggest, but it's one of the best. It's very.
Oh,
high.
okay.
It's very
Oh,
high
wonderful.
dollar.
Well, I
Hi, Doreen.
tasted Jenny's
Jenny's
ice cream. We can move
You
on.
can buy it at Kroger.
Oh, is it? Yes. Oh, it's delicious. It's delicious. So the takeaway specifically now for us, for Likanyile, we are definitely going to start doing the reader surveys. We've done a survey with farmers that we have profiled. It was part of a grant application that we were working on because we were trying to demonstrate impact. So, you know, it's something that we've done, but not on a broader level where it is with readers. So we are definitely going to start doing that. Events, no, we are not going to start putting out an ad looking for an events director, but eventually it is something that long-term, medium to long-term, definitely, I think it's worth it because events are also quite specialized. And I think you do need people who understand them so that you do them well. And they have also, well, integrating into the community, they participate in committees and other structures where it's a chance really to market your business and people get to know you and you get to know about what is going on in the community that you serve. And we are definitely also going to try and see how we can try and work smart because they work smart. Here's another, for me, the best thing, segmented newsletters. So, you know, with newsletters, typically we would just put whatever that we put in there, which is part of our content. We may have something new here and there. These guys put out 5 newsletters a week. So what they do, because they do food and restaurants, art, property and development, there's entertainment, a little bit of, so what they do, they have a newsletter for each segment, basically for each category that they cover. And newsletters then go out to those audiences because also they know who their audiences are. Those newsletters, the food newsletter goes to the people who are interested in that content. The art newsletter goes to the people who are interested in that. And what it does, their open or click rate for newsletters is incredible. And the ads, some of the best ad revenue also comes from newsletters because people actually read them because it is content that they're interested in. And, you know, we have different categories. We have agri, we have personal finance. So, and we've been working on a plan to introduce a newsletter. And I'm glad that we actually hadn't introduced it before I came here, because this is the approach that we are going to take as well. Segmented newsletters. And again, it is Anne who does the newsletter. It is done in-house, 5 days a week. So that's a newsletter a day. It is done in-house. I like that approach. I had not heard of it elsewhere or seen it done elsewhere where it is segmented according to categories. And I think it's brilliant. And then I also like, which I've spoken about, that though, yes, they are online only, but they have found a way to have a limited and smart print presence, which is linked to their events, which is also a revenue generator. And I've spoken about this really, where, yeah, you see time wasters, and then hiring people gradually. So one of the other things as well is they have permanent salespeople. They said initially they tried to have people who sell ads on commission only, it didn't work. So 2 people sell ads. They are there permanently. There's the events director, and then there's the editor, the senior reporter, and then there's Ann Walker and then. And I've spoken about this, where you source grants to augment the team. Other thing that they do, and I sat in on this as well, because I sat in on all the meetings, and because fortunately it was month end, on the first Friday of the new month, they sit, the editor and then Walker sit, and they review the previous month. So they look at the stories that were well read, so that if it maybe it's something that they would not have thought, or they would not ordinarily have paid attention to, then they are able to decide that, okay, we need to give our readers more of this because clearly they like it. So you know, they review analytics. You know, I mean, we do things on a quarterly basis because we do our plans even on a quarterly basis, but I like the monthly reviews. And you know, it's part of a diary meeting really with the editor. And then they also look at the things that they were not able to get to for whatever reason, and they focus on that. And then they also do this, and you know, commercial newspapers do this a lot, your year-end reps and best list, best of this. And I mean, today, I think we have the Forbes 30 under 30 and Forbes whatever list. It's something that started like, so they also have the best lists for the categories that they cover, and people love those. And I think it's also, it's you repurposing your content. So that shouldn't really cost you anything, but you can, depending on how you do it, you can attract more readers or even revenue. We can move on. Okay. This is the slide for the things that are not necessarily for us, but maybe for you guys. I thought I'd just add it in now. So though they are a business publication, but they obviously are also a lifestyle publication. And you know, if perhaps you are not doing lifestyle, I think that lifestyle content brings in audiences, and maybe some of you guys can find ways. I will still need to think about it. So it's not something that we would necessarily want to do immediately. But you know, maybe you can find ways to add in the lifestyle content that you think may work. But also they sell ads directly. And they say that, well, besides the analytics that I spoke about much earlier, they do get people who say, oh, but your rates are higher than Google ads, you know, and they push back to say, oh, well, yes, besides the fact that we know how many people we reach, but we also know, like, you know, we can tell you who your ad will be seen by. Because with Google ads, you don't know really where your ad lands, and where it lands, it is people who are interested in it. I mean, all the time, when a Google ad comes up, I click close, and I always say not interested, even if it's something ordinarily, because it interrupts my reading. So it annoys me. But while they sell ads directly, they have found a way to also include a little bit of Google ads. And they do it, you know what Google ad does? It makes your site look like, in South Africa, it's called the crazy store. I think here it's the $1. It just makes it look clumsy, cheap, you know. Yeah. They have found a way, and I wasn't aware of this. And it goes back as well to what I said about understanding the tools that you use. So because they really focus on understanding, they use Google Suite, by the way, for everything. They are G Suite people. So I wasn't aware that with Google ads, you can decide, for example, to say, okay, no to gambling ads, no to alcohol. So they have selected the categories that they have blocked. And then that is how they control what comes onto their website, and that is how they limit what comes onto their website from Google ads. I wasn't aware of that. So that's another thing that I learned. So if you want to venture into this model, we just staying clear of Google ads.
this is but for, you guys, if you want to. And I think this also came up in the previous, with the previous presenters, and throughout our time here, that participate in community structures, get involved, especially, I think, if you serve a particular community, get involved so that people know you. And yeah, it is about the community. So yeah, that's that. I think that's the, okay. So yeah, no, I just think, yeah, CU people are really the last man standing. I mean, if you think about it, if you think about the life of the company thus far, they have survived the recession in 2008, the advent of social media, being online only, which is something that, has been difficult for some online people. And of course, they've survived COVID-19. They didn't retrench anyone during COVID-19. They didn't cut salaries. And I think that's something to be commended. If you consider of what, the approach, especially with large commercial publication. So I really like that. I think that's the last slide. Yeah, guys.
Questions for Slee? Shirley,
Hi, thank you.
hold on, Shirley, wait for the mic.
I love it.
Shirley, wait for the mic.
Hi, hi, Sri. Okay, excellent presentation. Well done. Wanted to ask you, I know that even during our previous conversations about your visit to Columbus, do you have plans in terms of events? You liked the way you were very excited about that, and you say, hey guys, you wouldn't believe what was going on. So are there plans, your own plans for these events?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. We just need to work out. In fact, we've always had ideas for events. For example, something like financial literacy. They obviously need to make sense. It's such a piece. Probably the thing is, I'm a huge coffee lover. and maybe, entrepreneurs would be interested because we write for them, but definitely we have plans for events. But it was also, I think, a light bulb moment for me being at Columbus Underground was that they do events not dependent on sponsorship. Because I come from an environment where I always thought, unless we have a sponsor, then we can't do an event. But they do, their events are supported by their readers. Of course, I again will always be mindful of the fact that it's different environments, America and South Africa. But we had a conversation just with Andile yesterday. And I said, sometimes we make assumptions. And when we actually start interrogating those assumptions, we realize just how wrong we are, because the community that we serve, the market that we go for is obviously primarily low income earners. And if we start drilling down, some of them are people who would probably be interested in traditional Maskandi music. And if you look at music sales in South Africa, those are the people who spend money buying the music. Those are the people who travel. They will go, if their favorite artist is performing in Johannesburg, they hire a taxi. They buy tickets. They buy merchandise. So actually, even within low income earners, people do spend money for that which resonates with them. And there are sometimes we think low income means no disposable income, which is not true. And I think if you give something that, people that will resonate with them, they actually will spend money. And I think sometimes we've been stuck in stereotyping and assumptions, which are actually, if you interrogate, as I say, are unfounded. So definitely we will do events. We just need, I think what I like is, and with everyone that has been speaking here, is the fact that, the coffee festival is in September, but just like with other people, they work on it from the beginning of the year, not in July or no, they have someone who's there, who's sitting and working on, and I remember in one of the meetings, they shared a story about how there was I think a coffee roaster that they were not going to work with again, because, so even, walking away, that's another thing, that's why I keep talking about sifting time wasters, walking away from certain people. And, they said, well, if we're not going to enjoy working with you, then it's really not worth it. So they just about positive vibes and chilled like that. And because sometimes we also think, oh my God, client is always right, or you try and nest relationships and then it just becomes nasty unnecessarily, so definitely.
Good stuff.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Kate has a question.
Firstly, I mean, just well done. I mean, just a fabulous presentation, and just to say thank you for distilling the lessons. It's just so beautiful because you just have a sense of like, okay, so this works, this works, this works. And I think there were so many good ones. And I have to say, it's more just a comment actually. But I thought the one thing which you said, which was very interesting, was the idea about who is your audience, and doing that survey of your audience, and then the kind of clever thoughts around, like, why are you asking people about, like, do you have a pet? And then you start to realize, hey, actually it really matters, because there's a lot of money in pets and pet food and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to say I thought that was very interesting. And then this is just a thought from my side. I was thinking about AIP, and I was thinking, well, who's our audience? And I was thinking, well, you guys are our audience. And the importance of us actually finding out exactly what you need, what you want, what's important to you, and also, interestingly, what events would you like? What would make sense for you? And so you're just kind of getting my mind to spark. And so thank you very much. Cool.
Other questions?
Going once, going twice.
Molly?
But
You make me sound disappointed.
No, it's a short question. Who is their competition there? Do they have competition there, or the reason why they are successful is because they don't have anyone that they spar with?
when you're online, everyone who's online is your competition. That's really the answer. And we also spoke about that, but it is something that even at our, at Umbele or at Likanyile, we realized when you're online, basically, if someone has $100 a month to spend, okay, like in our case, you have 100 Rand to spend on data a month, you're not going to spend more simply because there is Umbele. So you continue to use that 100 Rand to go to Facebook, to maybe go to Netflix, to also go and read Umbele. So, whoever that is online really is their competition. There have been people who have tried to do what they do because, well, you know how it is, even from your own experiences. People look at what you do and they think it's easy because you make it look easy. And then they discover that actually, so there are people who have launched but have not necessarily survived. But, everyone is online and there are other publications, but I think it's 22 years. It's being in it for the long haul. It's being committed, but it is also innovating, letting go of things that don't work and all the things that they do. And they have found, they know that Columbus is huge. And I mean, the restaurants there, it's insane. So food and art are big things. I mean, as I said, I'm art illiterate, but I could see that, okay, art is a big thing here. I may not understand what, when I look at it, it means, but it's huge. And of course, other things that they have relationships with the universities. There's an arts college there. They are all over, and they have not tried to be what Ohio Capital, for example, is, which is about politics. They have just, stuck to what they know works for them. I mean, they started as a gig guide, and they have just maintained that. People love reading about restaurants. People love knowing where to go, what to do. Well, I think another newsletter that they do is a gig guide, actually. So you then know whether you're new in town or even if, you know, there are always restaurants opening up. I mean, where I met the South African is I almost said it right. I forgot that we are not in Columbus, almost said behind the hotel, but it was it's called Columbus Commons, which is right behind the Sheraton Hotel, and food trucks gather there every Wednesday, and there was a Nigerian truck, there was a Mexican truck. So, you know, these food things, food is huge in Columbus, guys. Like, and if you're a publication, and I think, you know, if you're not doing anything about it, food is huge in Columbus. There are restaurants. It's like, think about in Joburg, think about the Melville Strip, or in Durban, think about the Florida Strip, but 10 times that big. Like the restaurants galore in Columbus.
Mahmoud has a question.
And it's another question, just another comment. So Simon and I had the pleasure of being invited by Columbus Underground. So we had a pizza evening. But the point that I want to make is that just to emphasize the one learning that Slee highlighted is that there's a very distinct difference between the audiences of Ohio Capital Journal and Columbus Underground. Our publication focused strictly on the politics of the state. And theirs is more of a lifestyle audience. So it's very distinct, and therefore the business models are very distinct. But what makes the experience for us very powerful as a learning experience is that you can pick learnings from both business models. Now, we'll speak about ours when we do Ohio Capital Journal. But as far as Columbus Underground is concerned, the important lesson for us there, for my newspaper in particular, is the value of events, and how events as part of lifestyle can actually be a very, very powerful driver of revenue. And that to me came across in our meeting with them. But what also struck me is that this is a husband and wife team. And Walker Evans, the two of them kind of personalized the whole encounter with him. They spoke about the children, about the teenagers, and how their business and their passion for their publication isn't necessarily shared by the children, because the kids, and we met one of them when we were there for the pizza evening, they're kind of in their own world. But as they grow up, they learn the lesson of how to run a business and how not to run a business. I think that was a good takeaway that we had.
Definitely, yes.
Kate has a question.
So it's actually a question, because you said something interesting about hiring people gradually. I thought that's very interesting. I also wanted to ask you your views on actually pulling people in on a freelance basis to do things. So for instance, you don't know whether you're going to get a lot of money. You can't employ somebody sort of full-time or even part-time. But would you consider, and did they consider, like for instance on the event side, bringing in a person for each event? So not to be employed, there all the time, but kind of, I mean, it's a bit different from what you were saying, because you were saying like plan it like over a long period, but there might be another way of doing it as well, which is bringing somebody to do something, focus on it completely, pay them to do the event, and then move on to something else. Just a question about kind of how you'd manage that.
Well, on the writing side, we do have freelancers. So we've always, for example, when it comes to our webmaster, we've always had a designer, a freelancer. We recently added a mid-level journalist after experimenting with junior freelancers. We kind of figured actually maybe not. It's okay to have the intern in-house, but from a freelancer point of view, it wasn't quite working. So but we now have a mid-level freelancer, and it's great because what she does, you don't even have to remind her. She gives you a diary on Thursday for the following week, and she starts delivering on Sunday. And it's amazing because this is someone senior who knows what you're looking for, and if something that she had said she was going to deliver is not working out, you don't have to ask her, is that story still coming? She knows. She updates you so that you can make another plan. If you were banking on that story to say, okay, I have not been able to get hold of so and so. And in fact, this particular person who she was just telling me that she's actually going to be available, and we were planning because we actually want to go to a coffee farm. This is a story that we were speaking about long before this. We actually want to go to a coffee farm in the South Coast to say, okay, I'm going to be available on such and such a date. So we can drive down to the coffee farm and do ABC. And so that has worked for us to have a mid-level. From events, I've always, when I look at events, one of the things, those people work hard. Because we have fun, we leave, and they still have to clean up, pull down the drapings. So definitely when
Coffee.
yes, make coffee. So manage the Zoom links. So when we have events, definitely the idea for us, and we actually have a client who is into events who sometimes subcontracts us for PR. So we would actually like to reciprocate and outsource it to someone, but as I say, we were thinking we will get a sponsor. So we're gonna have to work out which event, how will we get people to pay for it? Oh yes, guys, another thing you've just reminded me, Kate, is that with events, it is also what they use to collect database so that they can then follow up with people to say, would you like to opt into our newsletter? And the first time that they did that, they spent $250 and they did a competition. And I hope my figures are correct. They had a response of like 3,000 people, which was like an incredible database. So you can imagine the return on investment already. Even if once you follow up with those 3,000 emails, not everyone wants to opt in. But it's a great start to start with a base of 3,000 emails to try and get people to opt in. So yeah, we are definitely going to see how on a part-time basis we can bring in someone. But I like the idea because from experience, we have seen that getting people, trying to get them to sell ads for you on a commission basis doesn't work. I think people are not motivated enough because then they can work and chase leads for a whole month. But if no one has committed, then it also means you can't pay them because you pay them on commission. But if there is a level of a base, it makes a difference. So
of course, that varies by community because the Logan Huntland Times, their 2 sales reps work only on commission.
Oh, yes.
They get 30% and they're doing fine. So, this is never a one size fits all thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Columbus is a very, very vibrant economic market. Logan is a very small, limited economic market. So if you're in a market where there are limited options, commission's going to work. If you're in a market like Columbus, where your salespeople have lots of other options to make revenue, you got to give them something else. You got to give them some kind of a baseline to keep them committed to the task. Well, to keep them committed to the task.
Yeah. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah. All right.
One more question? We have time for one more question. All right, thanks, everybody. Thank you, Ann and
Thank you,
Wanda.
Ann.
Team Evans.
Yes.
Okay. All right,
We at Team CU.
10-minute break.
Oh.
Please be back in time. And I apologize for this week, the
I'd
system
already
crash.
packed, otherwise I would have brought my CU cup.
But
But
today
it's
10
already-
minutes, not 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
10 minutes hard.
Sweet. Let's see. Let's go.
Thank you. Anita, thank you so much for being so flexible. Yeah. All right, it's too late to make any. Because I already sent the PDF.
Did you want me to turn off all or just the ones that are
After this one, I'll turn everything
Turn
off. I added the names. I made the fix. So this is correct.
Yeah, this is correct, yeah.
This is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what I have, okay. And I changed, it's not the Yellow Springs newspaper, it's the Yellow Springs News. So I edited all of the.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I made a bunch of those little fixes, but it looks good now. This is why I wanted this stuff in last night. So that I can have time to go through it. But we got, so like, for example, you didn't have their names here, their last names, so I went ahead and put their names in there for you. But it was mostly just little things. I increased the point size of some of these things so that it's easier to read on the screen, little stuff like that. So otherwise, it's all good. What does this mean? Some people aren't gonna understand what that means. Past?
Yeah. That's what because Nero was presenting in the past, it's not yesterday. Yeah, she spoke about it from the past, but the other student didn't the sponsor for this. Share the sponsor for.
Right. Okay. All right, I'm gonna replace that PDF then. Here, I mean, Chris. Oh, Chris isn't here. Imagine if you had 6 stories all arrive right on deadline.
And you still have to edit.
They still need to be edited.
We do that.
Well, you did it to me.
That's true, we actually do.
Anita sent me hers. Anita wins deadline and Slee win the deadline. They understood.
Seems so.
And you see how spoiled you get when you have really good high-speed internet, is you don't take time to downsample, make photos smaller, because you just assume that the bandwidth is there. I have to, or my students get docked major points if they send a file that's more than 2 megs. Because it's like, you're forcing your audience to waste their data, which they pay for, on your laziness. It's not acceptable. Got to get those files down.
But how do you do it? Because I struggled yesterday.
So when you export as a PDF, you change the quartz filter from none to reduce file size.
Okay.
And it will compress a lot of things. This one is just through preview on the Mac. If you have Adobe Acrobat, not Reader, but Acrobat, the actual one, that actually has a number of different compression algorithms that you can choose to optimize those files. So you can take something that's like 60 megs and get it down to like 1.5 megs.
Oh, wow.
The other thing though, is when you do your images,
Yes.
when you bring images into any file,
Yeah.
the data from that image is brought into the file.
Mm.
So if you downsample your images first, and that's why it's important to use Photoshop or Affinity Photo or something like that, to make sure that when you're processing your images, you're exporting them as a JPEG, a TIFF, a PNG, you know, some kind of a compressed image file rather than the raw photo. It's critical.
Okay.
It's critical.
Yeah.
And once you do it a few times, it becomes automated.
Automatic that you always do that.
Yeah, and most of the apps.
Yeah.
Because you're doing it so often, they kind of remember the settings.
Yeah.
So they know that when you go to export, you can set up the default export will be to the side. And of course, for print, you want the best possible quality.
Yes.
For digital, you want the fastest deliverable.
Yeah.
Now, if you have a CMS that has basically an image processor, so that it will decide which version of the image will, the low version or the low res or the high res is most appropriate. So like when you pull an image from your CMS into a print, it'll use a high res TIFF, right, or PNG. Whereas when it posts it to online, it'll grab the low res version for online, and especially for phone.
Especially for fun, you know. Mobile.
So it's just, you know, learn all of the functions of your software and exploit them.
Yeah. And that's so true, because I think most of the time, I mean, I'll just use the program without looking at all the different features of it, and there's so much more what you actually like to do.
I mean, in the production environment, it's fine.
Yeah.
If you're, you know, you're working on the land and you're in-house, it's fine for all of that.
Yeah.
It's just remember, before you send it out to your audience, be mindful of their limitations, especially when people are paying for data. I mean, there's nothing more
That's a big
annoying.
issue in South Africa.
Well, and the thing is, that there's nothing more annoying than if you're paying for data and somebody emails you something with a giant attachment. That attachment's gonna load whether you want it to or not. You can't stop it. And you've just eaten up somebody's data and cost them a lot of money because you couldn't be bothered to take one little extra step. That's why it's a major penalty in the classes I teach. And also students who submit raw files, like they don't send me a PDF, they send me a PowerPoint or sometimes an InDesign file or something like that. It's like, no, not acceptable. And you also miss deadline because you didn't follow instructions. No, fellas. Duty and duty to the front. No. Simon, can you pop back over there and rally the troops to get over here? We're at the top of the hour. Thank you. Sorry, we're on Dutch time.
Is that even more? I mean, I was gonna say American time has been pretty good. So you think
Yeah.
Dutch time is.
Well, Lisa's Indian time, Native American time, which is kind of easy though.
And African time.
I'm Pennsylvania Dutch. We're Maak met de snel.
I know, it's a good thing to me. Schnell, it's like, I know that word.
Make with the hurry. You get happy news?
Yeah.
Que pas les roses, voilà le match.
All right. Who's missing? Nobody. We're all set. Okay. All right. Last presentation of the morning. And Dealey and Dooney had a shorter week than y'all. They arrived on Monday in Yellow Springs and they left Friday. So they arrived noon Monday and left noon Friday. So they didn't get quite as much time with their hosts, but I think they had a very rich experience. So I look forward to your presentation, fellas.
Yes.
Take it away.
No, a good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to Yellow Spring. In fact, just down one Yellow Spring. I mean, as you said, I mean, we arrived on Monday. Monday it was busy, although they didn't have, I mean, the Memorial Day there, but it was jam-packed because I remember I went to 3-4 restaurants, it was full, and then say we must wait for our 30 minutes. But the following day, I mean, it was a different story. It was very, very quiet. I mean, it was like normal anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah. Yeah. It's ready. Yeah. We want to take you to the real newspaper because like now we are dealing with the history. I mean, the publication started in 1888. I mean, they've seen it all. I mean, the changes in print, the changing of printing machine, everything. I mean, it was there. I mean, it was started. In fact, the original name it was the review, and started by Warren Anderson. I'll try to rush. I won't like go. In fact, we won't go word by word. But I mean, the interesting thing about this publication is the ownership. Because I mean, what they are using now, I mean, the workers, that the one who are owning the newspaper. I remember in the first week, we spent some few minutes discussing about, I mean, the ownership. I mean, I think it's Mbali was saying that, I mean, she doesn't know, I mean, whether the children are going to want the publication, I mean, to run the publication after she retires. But here's the formula now that, I mean, you can apply, I mean, probably, yeah. And this rat formula like we can apply to our publication. And so the current, I mean, owners are Cherry Douglas and Lauren Chuck Show and Mason. Can we move on? And good thing about this thing, I mean, the owners, I mean, the majority of the owners are women, and they all have the equal share. I mean, they all have, I mean, the equal powers. I thought I was going to give a round of applause. Because really, I mean, they're really empowering, I mean, women. I mean, in South Africa, I mean, it's rare to find, I mean, a media house, I mean, like this. I mean, more especially like the one that, I mean, it's got this much years. I mean, you will never find them. It's only we as men, So I think, I mean, executive director, she's learning something, I mean, out of this. I mean, this formula, I mean, they were using it, I mean, since, I mean, 1970. So you can see now, I mean, from 1970 up until now, like, I mean, the workers, I mean, the one who are really taking charge of the publication. It's not a female business. It's not like, okay, I'm working there and my mother is working there. After she passed on or whatever, I'm going to be taking over her shares there. No, I mean, as long as you work there, you've got the right, I mean, to have the shares there. And then we also spoke, I mean, about the cooperative and non-profit, I mean, entity. So Yellow Spring, as we speak now, I mean, it's a close, I mean, cooperation. But I mean, they're busy trying to figure out whether they can be a cooperative or a non-profit cooperative. Because like now, I mean, if it was me, based here, I mean, in USA, I was going quickly move to non-profit because I mean, there's a lot of opportunity getting, I mean, funding, getting assistance, I mean, here and there. So the pictures there is the proof to show that indeed, I mean, we were there at Yellow Spring. Even if we went on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but we were there. And we're lucky enough, I mean, the same day when we arrived on Monday, we have taken to the village. In South Africa, we call it the municipality. So we met the municipal manager. So if I was in South Africa, I was saying now I'm having power because I because I mean, it's a decision maker anyway. I mean, it's not. I mean, you know who get what. You know? So I was like, say, I'm rich now, even before you have not given me anything. Yeah. Good. Apart from what they are doing, I mean, a newspaper, because I mean, where I asked them, I mean, what else are you doing to make, I mean, a man? Sorry, let me quickly pick this up. Yeah. What else? I mean, they're doing. I think I mean, cause Mary, I mean, they're doing the same thing that they're doing. The host of SLE, they're using the same. I mean, module of sustainability. So they're doing the Yellow Spring. I mean, giving this one of these. Can you see it? It's a catalog. Yes. And then they also have, I mean, a guide to Yellow Spring. And then they got the Yellow Spring, I mean, community directory. Yeah, it is. They've got the Yellow Spring.
And that one's always, the cover is always red, so it's easily identifiable. Just in Yellow Springs, it's a way to because it's updated every year.
The guide to Yellow Spring. And the calendar. I think this is one of I mean, our note that I mean, at least I mean we have to do I mean our own I mean calendars. I mean when we
just to say something about the calendar, what they do, they go to their archives and take the old pictures and put them in here and put a caption. This is what was happening on such and such a year, you know. So it's a nice calendar with adverts inside. They do sell adverts. You can see there are adverts there, and then they will give to their community.
Yeah, this is I mean the continuity of what they are doing at Nuggets of Praise. Apart from those things, I mean, you can see, I mean, the nice T-shirt. And also the cap. I mean, forget. I mean, to come with the cap. So. There's I forget. I mean, there's one of these. I mean, that's bringing more money than that. There's, I just forget which one it is. But they all. I mean, have but I mean the advert. Yeah. They are printing 1,700 copies. I mean, black and white. I mean, the publication. So just black and white. It's not like I mean in South Africa, because I mean South Africa, whether it's black and white, I mean they charge us. I mean the same amount, yeah, same price anyway. So, but yeah, I mean if it's color,
it's actually true here too. Their choice to stay black and white is an aesthetic choice.
Okay. Yeah. So the newspaper is black and white. So out of 1,007, I mean, copies that they're printing, I mean, 1,222, I mean, is a subscription. And then they've got also online, which they've got, I mean, 100, I mean, subscription inside the Yellow Spring, and then 340 outside, I mean, the village. And then out of those, 170 probably could be Kentucky state and New York, I don't know what that New York was. And the population of Fufele is a very small, I mean, community. I mean, plus minus, I mean, 3,700. It is very, very small, and they don't have like, I mean, section like section 1, section B, section C, or section or D. Section A, section just like this. And good thing about this, I mean, because you can see that these people, when they started, they really told themselves they want to stay in printing. I mean, they used to have, I mean, their own printing plant, as you can see there. I mean, so they stopped using that printing plant because it was very old, it was very costing to maintain. So they wanted to move with time. I mean, with the technology. Unfortunately, by that time, they couldn't have the money to upgrade and get the new printing, the latest, I mean, printing platform.
The old linotype is still there in the back room. They've got the equipment. It's just the equipment is so old and out of service, and now they can't find it. I mean, how many of you know how to operate a linotype machine? I mean, so like that's lost, but they're thinking about getting back in the printing business at some point.
Yeah. And one thing that, I mean, that impressed me, like they own, I mean, it's a small, I mean, organization with this big history, but they own a building. The building that they're operating from it now, they're not renting it, they're owning it, and also people who are renting to that building, so that at least, I mean, they can help them to pay the municipal rate and all the smaller and cost, I mean, that, I mean, the maintenance of the building anyway. Yeah, so this is the map of the village, Yellow Spring. So you can see, I mean, it's a very small community. I mean, when we arrived there, I mean, part of this, I mean, of this so-called city, I mean, we've done it with plus minus 10 minutes. We've managed to finish it, and we are not even tired anyway to move around. Oh, yeah. So again, I mean, as we said in the beginning, that I mean, the owners, I mean, are three, and they all have equal shares, and the women, I mean, what much would say, and even this one, you can see, I mean, they've got 6 full-time staff, and the majority still, I mean, are the women, and they've got to say, it's not like, I mean, they'll put that or the front them anyway, but okay, you just come take this position, but you don't say anything, you just take instruction for me. I mean, it's like what is happening normally in South Africa in government, like they just give you position for the sake of you being there, but you don't take a decision. It's us at the back who's taking decision. Who's telling you? Yeah, so they also, I mean, have part-time staff that are helping them with editing and proofreading and distribution. I was lucky enough, Bright Jeff, I mean, that day he did pop up in the office. I was searching the picture that I took with him so that you can all see him. I mean, it's a quite old man. I mean, the way people of Yellow Spring love the publication. Monday it was all day. They normally print on Wednesday, and the paper is out by Thursday. And Thursday the paper was not there. I mean, people were calling, they were coming to the office.
Asking.
In fact, they end up putting, I mean, a notice on the door. They know the papers not ready. We didn't print today, we're going to print it tomorrow. So you can see how passionate these people they are, love, I mean, their publication. I mean, I was even thinking, if along the way, I mean, the Yellow Spring, I mean, feel that no, they cannot, the cost of running the paper is too much, they want to close the publication. I mean, the owners that must go and ask refugees somewhere in Africa, because if they can go and hide somewhere in the USA, and the community that are going to fetch them, and so what have we done with them? And to add on that, I mean, or in fact, I'm going to say it in the next slide. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is the big thing: money. Where does the money come from to run the publication? I mean, most of the money, the 55%, as you can see there, is coming from the municipality public notice. So I've asked them their relationship, I mean, with the municipality. How's your relationship, I mean, with the municipality? It's just normal relationship, but they say there's is it a law that, I mean, any notices must be put, I mean, in a publication. And in South Africa, we know we have the same law that, I mean, you must this and this. We know the story of 30%, but they're not. So at least, I mean, this time, I mean, this side, I mean, they are, I mean, following that particular law. And also, we have met the mayor, not the MM, the mayor. And then we're talking about, I mean, the newspaper, and say how good the newspaper it is. I mean, it's helping them with this and this and this, and say they will continue to support the newspaper. In fact, in 2 years now, I mean, they're going to turn 145. Yeah. So it should be said, I mean, they're going to help them to that particular event, the celebration. I mean, they're going to assist them somehow. So hopefully, they will invite me to be part, they will invite us to be part of particular event. And then you can see the breakdown, I mean, of the rest of the money, the subscription, I mean, the advertising, the notice, because here, I mean, they make a difference. Okay. They differentiate, I mean, okay, this money is coming from this particular, this one coming from the classified. And they also work closely with the Yellow Spring, I mean, community, I mean, foundation to raise, I mean, to raise funds to plan some event, I mean, to gather to assist them in running the business. They also partner with, because there's a community radio there, of which the partnership, I mean, we spoke with it, I mean, so won't dwell much about the partnership. So they have the partnership with, I mean, community radio. I don't remember community TV.
Yeah, there is a community TV.
We have almost no community TV in America.
But they said there is a channel that
There's
online,
it's
yeah.
called public access.
Yeah.
That the cable networks have to provide, but that's different than what you would consider community TV.
Yeah, so if you can see that still on the right there, I mean, they put, I mean, those, I mean, the copies of the yellow guard, like, I mean, it's well protected, whether it's raining, it's snowing, it's well protected. Everybody can grab it, I mean, themselves, and also the newspaper in the storm. Yeah, partnership, yeah, the members of Ohio News Media Association and Ohio Black Media Association. Good thing, ask them about do you have a press council now? He said they don't have a press council, and say, how do we deal with the situation? I mean, what a journalist, we know sometimes we make that little error in the writing the story. So ask them, how do we deal with the situation whereby, I mean, you miss report, I mean, the story. They say, okay, the readers write a complaint to the editor, and then they sit down, they call him, whoever that person, sit down and see how best they can resolve, either they rewrite the story or, but somehow they have to find, I mean, amicable way among themselves. And also, they don't have, I mean, advertising bureau. I mean, so in South Africa, we got that bureau control, I mean, advert, which advert can go to the public. So they don't have it here. And also I ask them again, how do you deal with that thing? They say, no, it's about them. They first discuss, but okay, is it worth it to take this advertise now? And then I said, okay, give me an example. And then they said there was this campaign, I mean, organization during COVID that they say, no, I mean, there's no COVID. We know the people who are pushing that agenda, there's no COVID. The first invited them to come to their event where they were running that campaign. They didn't go to the event. And then the second time come, look, man, we want to advertise with you. I don't know whether that was once offer, it was a contract, but I mean, the advert, it was about, I mean, COVID, that was anti-COVID, that there's no COVID, this and this and this, that don't exist. So they sit down among themselves. I think they throw them anyway. And then they took the decision, no, we don't have money, but we want money, but this money, we cannot take this money, because of which is a good decision, because I mean, the way the newspaper is presenting the yellow state, I can imagine if they've taken, I mean, the wrong information, feeding the people that there's no COVID, we must not wear masks, we must not do this and this and this, continue, I mean, with life as normal. But all the other hands, I mean, we're seeing people, I mean, perishing because of the same diseases that they said there's no.
Every single news organization you've been exposed to this 3 weeks will absolutely say no to certain advertising. Absolutely. They're like, no, our integrity is worth more than when you're on. I remember Mary even talked about the gold and silver shows. They're pretty shady operations. And she's like, no, you're gonna pay full rate for it. We're not gonna give you a cut rate for that. And she's like, you know, it's like, we'll let you advertise, but it was, you know, are you a legitimate, or are you one of these fly by night that comes in to try to exploit people?
Yeah, you know what, Bill, in South Africa, there's this lingo instance about it, Tata Zonke. I mean, take everything. So this is what I mean, the Yellow Spring was doing. I mean, since 2016, it was just like dominating. Like I mean, it's only this year. Like I mean, I think they just decided that, oh no, guys, it's not because your paper does not, but no, let's just give the others for the sake of, let us trying to be fair. But if you can look, I mean, they've got the principles, I mean, the fact that, I mean, they refuse the money, the paper, you can see the stuff, I mean, because, I mean, it's different for me working for the organization and me being the owner and the worker, I mean, at the work same time. So I make sure that, I mean, we produce 100% quality. We don't compromise. I mean, so since 2016, I mean, they have been winning, I mean, the award. It's only, I mean, this year, I mean, they didn't get, I mean, the award. In fact, I mean, they even done the story, but this year we didn't win the award.
I mean, they won a few individual awards, but they didn't win the big newspaper of the year award this year. That was won by the Archibald Buckeye, Mary Hubert.
And I like that they've accepted that they didn't win. They even wrote a story where they say the news has won the award. They know they didn't win, you know, so I like that.
Yeah, so this about the editorial, I mean, policy. Yeah, it's pretty much, I mean, the same editorial policy that, I mean, most of us, I mean, we are using, I mean, in the country, but only maybe it differ here on the is it Mary who was speaking about this marriage thing, is it marriage and death announcement? So I don't think, I mean, some of us we have not yet there, but I mean, the rest of the thing, I mean, that it's what we are doing. We all get tip, there's a story, this and this and this and this. Please, I mean, come and join us. Yeah, after all this, I mean, those, I mean, 3 days will spend. What have we learn? I mean, what are we taking home, or what want, I mean, publishers at home to know about it? This news from the past. I think Uncle Mahmoud and Phil, I mean, this, I mean, news from the past is something that, I mean, they can take advantage of it, because, I mean, most of us were less than 20 years in publishing. So what they are doing, I mean, in the Yellow Spring, there's a section there where, like, they pick up, I mean, a story from 1921 or 19, and they put it in the publication. But Mary yesterday, she have the same thing, but she got a sponsor who's sponsoring that particular section. They go, okay, they're sponsoring this section. So I think it's one of the things, because I started publishing in 2008, so which means I've got enough, I mean, story that I can play around. I mean,
Did you say 1921?
Actually, we
Because they published, they launched in 1948, according to the IIJ. I think they launched in 1948.
1880, actually.
It's 1880.
Oh, okay.
It's the newspaper is 100 and something years.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh.
48, that must be another presentation then.
Well, no, they changed the name and reincorporated it in the 1940s.
Okay. so it was a slide.
But they bought out the other newspaper, but the organization
Yeah.
maintains an archive that goes back to the 1880s.
Wow.
and also to redesign the website. I mean, Meti is busy, I mean, putting the package and send updated email offer, it will put in whatever that they have to package together, so that, I mean, we can know what to do when we do the changes, I mean, in the website. Obviously, printing the calendar in Shitsonga, because, I mean, we don't have, I mean, any calendar. That's one thing.
One thing some newspapers do with news from the past is they'll have a special section every week. It says 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 25 years ago. There's nothing that says you can't do 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if you're a young publication.
All right, the other thing, which is we advised that they can do, it's the events, because they did not think about the event. So we said you can do the event to an extent that they were thinking about starting a fun run maybe in September, because they didn't have something like that. So it's the event that that we suggested that they can do. And the other thing is the response from the community. There is a box inside their office at the door there where they come and put in their subscription fee. So even if there's nobody inside the office, when they come back in the office, they will be able to find the money that is there. So those are some of the things that they encourage their readers to do.
But don't do that in South Africa. Nah?
What's your opinion on it?
Because nobody will pay, or because somebody will reach in.
Oh, yeah, no, thank you. That's all about the yellow thing.
Well, the other thing before you clap hands. Yellow Spring, as we said, it's a small town. They call it a rural area, of which it's something that is different to ours, because you'll find there each and every street, it's tarred, there's lights, nice houses and stuff like that. Now, as my colleague has said here, we were taken for a walk in town, which we just finished in less than 10 minutes. But when we were near the municipal offices, we were talking about the mayor, and a convoy of big cars came towards us. And I said, there's a mayor. They laughed at me and said, there's no mayor there. Our mayor is riding a bicycle. And I said, eh? They said, yeah. I could not believe that. The other thing is that, which shocked me, is that they said to us they last covered a story about killing or murder in 2019. And I was shocked because they said there's no murder there. They are not even worried about walking in the street, fearing that somebody that I wrote about will come and hit me or do something to me and do something bad to me. So they are free to walk in their community. So that is nice, something very nice about that time, about that town. Thank you very much.
It is quaint. Very quaint. All right, questions for Andy and Goody? Kate goes first.
So well done. I mean, again, you know, obviously like a really interesting experience, and thank you for capturing it. So there was something interesting that you put out in terms of like the take homes. You said redesign the website. So I'm just wanting to get some input from both of you about what it is that you're thinking about in terms of redesigning of your website. You know, is it a take home for you to think about your, you know, both of your different websites? So I'd love to know, like, what did you learn from them, and what are you thinking about doing in terms of your ones back in South Africa? Thanks.
I can say on my side, I'm interested in that part of subscriptions, which is linked in the website, of which in my website it's not there. Yes. What else? Particularly that issue of subscription, because when it means wherever you are, you can just go to the website and subscribe, you know. So if I can have that in my website, that would be something.
So just a follow-up question. So when you say that subscription, so just let me see if I'm understanding correctly.
Yes.
So you're basically saying that you're going to have a paywall.
Yes.
So people, but that's so interesting. Do you think that people are going to be happy with a paywall when they are generally used to in South Africa getting information for free?
On my side,
yeah.
Kate, I can say people want to subscribe. I raised this issue on my page, on my Facebook page, I think 2 months ago, when I was talking to my audience, requesting them to support, because things are not easy, things are difficult. They came back asking questions. How do we do that? You know, some came to the office to say, this is my 500 rands, you know. But I cannot keep up with that because a person is going to need to come at the end of the month to donate something. So I must create a system that is going to allow them to subscribe in the website, wherever wherever they are. You know? Yeah. And as you can see there, Kate, in all the newspapers that were presented here, they would tell you about, we've got such and such a percentage in subscription, you know, so if we can have that.
Lindili and then Mbali.
Thank you, guys. I'm in love with this, and take it back, please, before I steal it. Maybe before I ask my question, I just want to say something, because we have subscriptions. I do highly recommend Pay Fast, simply because they've got an amazing system, and they get the South African market in that, you know, in our market, there are people who, for whatever reason, are averse to paying online or transacting online, or just cannot because they are probably non-banked, but they do want to support you. So what PayFast does is, yes, you can transact online if you're comfortable, but there's actually an option where you select and then it sends you a barcode to your cell phone, and then you take the barcode, you go to a ShopRite or a USave, you pay for a subscription, and then you get an SMS. You get in fact, you get an email immediately when there's a subscription one. But also the beautiful thing, because when you want to withdraw, you can withdraw up to 100,000 rands a month. You just go into the website, you click refund, you confirm the money. On paper, they say you'll receive your money within 48 hours, but we've been getting it within 24 hours. But having that subscription button there is not enough. You need to push, you need to market, we have not been able to keep up with the marketing. So the numbers have not continued to grow at a pace when we were doing it, that it was growing, but PayFast is a great service provider. Does Yellow Spring, I see the directory has a cover price. Does the newspaper have a cover price, or is it free?
It used to have a cover price.
It's have a cover price.
Yes, but they are giving it free.
And do you know why that is the case? And also, I'm just interested with online, how much of what they do is online? Because I would imagine, based on everything that we've had, that this would do better than online. I'm just curious.
In fact, it's got a cover price. No? But if there's a maybe after 2 weeks there's a return, that's where they took those return up for free. I mean, in one of our slides there, I mean, there's a picture where we were taking the newspaper. I mean, it's when it's in the shop. So in terms of the online, you mean the subscription of the actual newspaper or the update?
No, I just mean updating the website, how much interaction happens online, or most of it is
in terms of people
with
visiting
audiences
with audience. They were not happy with their audience. Yeah, they were not happy, if I remember quite clearly, but they were not happy with their audience, with the numbers, and as a result, that's when they said, that's why they said they wanted to redesign their
Oh, they are also redesigning.
yes.
Oh, okay.
But because it's such a small village and such localized, and the newspaper is ubiquitous, you can pick it up anywhere. There's really not a high demand for online subscriptions, that people can grab the print copy. It's the nature of that community. If you're in a bigger city with a larger population, online makes a lot more sense to push it. But they do have some subscribers online. They're ready to roll when people want to do it online. But I mean, it's a beautiful newspaper, and and it maintains an aesthetic that people want to pick it up. It connects them to the past. It connects them to the present in a very special way. So, and Yellow Springs is an interesting community too. So it's not like there's nothing else like it. It's a town where people go to live and be in Yellow Springs. The community is very engaged. There's all kinds of group events going on and things like that. So, it's not a place where there's a lot of isolation. Let's put it that way. It's not like where I live, where people move to be left alone. Yellow Springs is a place where people go to be part of a community.
I was actually thinking when I saw the old printer that, I'm not arty, but you could create a nice museum of some sort where you start having visitors.
Yellow Springs is kind of funky place that somebody might show up and say, you know what, I want to get that old linotype running again, like an old tractor, an old car or something like that. Just for the fun of it. Next thing you know, they're going to be printing and linotyping at state of the art 1942.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, colleagues, and well done for the presentation. It's just a comment on subscriptions because it's something which we haven't considered. And when we look at all the presenters and the interactions that we've had, practically everybody does subscriptions. So I'm just thinking, if we do implement it in our publications, maybe it's worth to explore that, because I think the challenge that we have is we've always done things our own way, but sometimes it's good to just explore something new, because you never know. We might get 50 subscribers, but 50 is something. And, you know, like I'm thinking about our publications that we have back home. They are in various areas in KZN, and it's worth exploring, because sometimes we have this perception that people will not pay, whereas people might pay. If we start small, you know, you grow gradually, you might end up with a sizable amount of subscribers. People who really would wish to get a paper, but can't do that because they don't have access to the hard copy that we normally print. So I'm just saying this to encourage myself as well, and say maybe this issue of subscription is something that we need to seriously consider.
Can I just add something quickly about subscriptions, especially for the colleagues who are in rural communities? You know that, as you said, you have the older people who are still there, very few remaining, but you have people who are from Mbumbulu, but who are working in Cape Town, who are working in Johannesburg, who are interested in knowing what's going on in Mbumbulu. Those are the people who are mobile, the younger guys, who are most likely to subscribe. But also when it comes to subscriptions, some of the media houses, when they talk about subscribers, they do not necessarily mean people who are paying them hard cash, but you still get people to subscribe to collect the database, so that you know who they are, what they want, and then you are able to then start creating a list for newsletters. You start selling specialized ads just to this market. You start speaking, you know, approaching advertisers differently, like that example about pets with Columbus Underground. So sometimes it's not necessarily asking people to pay. Our subscription is 20 Rand a month, which is 240 a year. And generally people say, if I'm gonna pay you 20 Rand a month, I'm gonna actually end up paying more for bank charges. So generally they give us the 240 upfront, which is really nice. Because that's the nice thing about subscription money. It's upfront money. It's money in the bank before you give the product. Yeah.
It also depends, you see this issue which is being emphasized here, which I also overlooked, the issue of being connected to your community. So once you are connected to your community, I'm talking about pastors, traditional leaders, and other organizations in your area, especially us in the rural areas. It's easy for you to pass that message that, guys, I need support in terms of giving me 30 Rand or 20 Rand a month, you see. So the message is very easy to go when you are connected. So I think that is one thing that we need to master, the connection with our community.
I wanted to say that.
Get away from the microphone. Sorry. Sorry, Shirley.
Okay, great stuff, guys. I wanted to say that, like in the case of Richland Source, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit later, is that they understand, and we understand as well, that if there's value content, people's skills cost money to put that value content together. So you're going to get your dedicated readers. You're going to get, I've got the go down in Orange Farm who's selling a fat cook. She will not subscribe. But I've got other readers across the titles that are saying, and they understand that they want to read the stories about themselves in the paper. So they are going to give you that 50 Rand or whatever the case is. Like Richland Source, they've got people that pay as little as $7 a month, which is a reasonably amount, and the benefits that come with that, like, you know, you'll be able to shop at, we can create that. You can create those benefits like vouchers from Boxer or your local supermarkets in your area, whatever. And the thing on this, when you look at the membership on their website, they also have a shopping cart. So when we reach that stage where we're going to be having subscriptions on the website, so it's online, so then you can have the shopping cart, and people can just, so it's no fuss. You just pay your $50 or whatever amounts you decide you wanted to do, and then it's become seamless. Or you can have a box like your Yellow Springs
Yellow Springs
has, have a box or a thing on the door, because we know the South African context, right? To have a little thing like the old days post box, slip your envelope in there. Yeah, so there's so many things that can be done. But I really think that, Kate, that AIP needs to pursue this, because we realize nothing comes for free. We need to start understanding in our heads, we can't keep doing this. It's not working. Anyway, thank you.
All right, colleagues, thank you so much. And I think it's best that I give my comment here, because I saw something really special about what these guys are doing, and especially for a very captured audience, like a very captured community. The one thing that our colleagues are talking about here is really around subscription and about the likelihood of people wanting to pay for content. But I also think that there needs to be education about how media organizations are run, education about what the importance is of media. So I think once you give something away for free, as an example, with most of our publications, it's very difficult to get people to pay for that in the long run. But if there is some form of, I don't want to put it into government's responsibility, but I think as a sector itself, there needs to be a concerted effort, whether it is a dedicated page in all our publications that actually goes to teach people about how the newspaper works and the importance of the newspaper. And that responsibility lies with us as publishers to educate our readers, because then that thaws out that whole process of content is free, et cetera, et cetera. So I just thought I'd just add that in there. Yes, we might be wanting to ask people for money, but we need to teach them and educate them as to the importance of media, and then make sure that we then go and close the deal per se, to say a commitment needs to be sustainable. It can't be just a once off. Just as a point.
It's a great idea, Chris, but the American model, we have tried repeatedly to educate people about what we do, and mostly goes right over their head. They're like, you don't tell us how to think. Don't tell us what we need to know. But there's little tricks. For example, in America, you see people walking around with a cup of coffee. It's almost like a status symbol, right? Americans buy a ton of coffee that's way overpriced, right? How about buy a newspaper, get a cup of coffee?
Yeah.
Value added, instead of saying, or if you buy coffee, add a newspaper. Make the newspaper value added to an experience for street food, all the little things that people are used to spending money on. That cup of coffee costs 5 times as much as the newspaper. They're like, oh yeah, add a newspaper to that. I want to read the newspaper while I drink my coffee and eat my donut or whatever, things like that. Or, I want to read the newspaper while I'm doing my lunch. Thinking about ways to get people to open up their wallets and cultivate that habit, just like the addictive habits of coffee, cigarettes, beers, things like that. Junk food. Interesting.
Yeah, that's my comment.
Thank you.
No, I think, I'll comment, Chris, we partially, started, to work on that thing, but it was not more on media education. I was just the power of print. We had a discussion with Kate and one of her big media in South Africa to assist us. So the discussion is there. We started as the power of print, how print important it is. Your newspaper. Compared to your social media. Because social media, if you wanted to get fake news. In fact, yesterday I was send a link to Simon. Look, I've got the iPhone. They says how many dollars? $30. iPhone 14. So when Simon check it, only to find out that address is somewhere in the subway down there. So the plan is there. Let's just hope, when we get home, we'll make sure that, 2-3 months, we actualize, start, with that, programming Because it will assist. I think that's one thing that that is lacking. In South Africa, media literacy. The general people, they have to know. Okay, media have to pay. It's even worse. With community media, because the thought community media is free. Everything is free.
They think they are tax pays.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
The rates and taxes paid for it.
The thing of that community publications here have a cover price.
You did
It's
not
taboo.
believe-
I wonder how we can do that because
A
wow.
lot of them are not, a lot of them are taking that off. I mean, Deb Tobin she could have charged for a newspaper. She doesn't. The print edition, which costs a lot more to publish than the website, is for free. And she spends a lot of time retrieving the newspaper, distributing the newspaper. So, she's giving away probably the more valuable, the one that generates a little bit more revenue than online. Because that business model works in her community. And there's, even in America, there's fewer and fewer people who feel like they want to spend money on a newspaper, even though those, like I said, they'll spend $5 on a cup of coffee every day, but they will not spend $1 a week on the newspaper that keeps them informed about everything, including where to get good coffee. So, it's a mindset thing. And like Chris said, it's educating people, trying to educate people. Basically, when you say, I want to educate you, you're saying you're stupid. Let me tell you how stupid you are. But tricking them into learning, that's different. And there are ways to do that to help them value. Some newspapers are fully transparent. They're like, it cost us this much money to produce this newspaper. Right at the top, guilts people into saying, oh, I need to support this, right? And like the study that Terry Finneman did up in the Great Northern Plains, right? Most of the people they talked to in the survey thought the newspapers were doing fine financially because they had no indication. So like, if I knew our newspaper was struggling, I would support it. Let your communities know that you're struggling financially. Don't make it pity party in things, but just say, hey, we're providing a community service. It's costing us this much a month. And just let the community say, well, if they value it, then they'll be more likely to support it. At least those who value
it. Just one comment to the issue of saying, how will we get people to pay for our news because they are used to getting it for free? It's an unfortunate statement, which I will make, but I will say it, the death of mainstream media might make it possible for us to be able to get to where we want to get. Simply because we know most of the publications in the mainstream media are closing, and we are there to fill in that gap. So the minute they close, you come into that gap. And then, as we are saying, we start educating people about paying. And surely people, if we've got the right content, the relevant content that they want, they will definitely be able to pay. So there might be a change from when we started doing 20 years later. We are seeing a difference. One of the managers at one of the municipalities would always say to us, you are the mainstream to us. She would say that to us as community media. And we would look at her and not believe. But today, give us 5 years, and I'm telling you, we will be reaping the benefits of being in this sector and charging as much as we want, not to exploit, but to just say, recover the costs, because we need to survive. And the only way to survive is to obviously change the mindset, improve on our services, but do as how they were doing. Because if they close, then we feel in that gap.
It's good to also communicate your philosophy and your independence in your own pages and online. So it is branding, but it's not. Branding kind of has this dirty, superficial aspect to it. It's like, we care. The automated email that says we care. Well, if you cared, you handwrite the note, right? Not that kind of stuff, but like Deb Tobin does up in Logan. Their motto is real local news, right? And there's one newspaper, I forget where it is. Let's say it's in Morgan County, Tennessee or something like that. Their motto is the only newspaper that gives a damn about Morgan County. It's like, we're here. It's like your only locally owned news source. You know, this news is produced by people who live in the community. You know, stuff like that that just constantly reminds people that you are there. You are part of their community, and that will help them differentiate between you and the mainstream. All right. Okay, one last question, then we gotta go for lunch.
So Antilia, I mean, you're just really making me think, both Dunia and it's just so a couple of thoughts, and I mean, I might be way off, whatever, but just to hear me out. So just in terms of the idea of kind of getting money into the publication, and so would there be a purpose in terms of, rather than doing a subscription model immediately, but more like a donation? Like, if you believe in this paper, donate, and do it by PayFast, maybe as a starting point before implementing a subscription model. So just a thought about that. And then I know with most of our publications, they are free. I mean, we distribute them for free. But then also starting, if we're wanting to say, you know what, actually news shouldn't be free. Actually, it's a public service, and actually it costs money to produce it. To then start to sort of say to people, you know what, we are actually going to introduce the cover price, and we're going to start to get you to understand that even if it's like tiny, I don't know, a rand, 50 cents, whatever, that we're making that statement. Anyway, just my final thoughts.
Or another take on that is to start letting people know that we are struggling financially. We like producing this for free to the community. We don't know how much longer we can do that. We might have to institute a cover price, but if you want to help us avoid that, donate. You know, and so it's a transition from going from free to paid, is you're letting them know that it could happen. You don't want it to happen, but if it has to happen, if it does happen, it's on them, not on you. If the community wants it to remain free, time for those who have a few rand to spare that kind of thing. And that way you don't, if you hit the community right away, you're going to lose goodwill. You know, and so there's ways to cultivate goodwill to get to that goal.
Just a quick one, Bo. I remember a few years back, the Zone. When they started out as a free publication. And when they had the readers hooked, they now put an article and said, now the Zone is going to be sold. And it was not a problem because people were already hooked on the paper, so it was easy. So it all goes back to education, informing, and just getting
But they let people know it was coming.
Yes.
It wasn't a surprise.
Yes, it was not a surprise.
Yeah, and I mean, you heard a lot of the publishers say, we raised our price from $1 to $3 cover price, and we had very little pushback. So once you've got them hooked on your product, they're probably going to support you. But again, every community is different. All right, let's wrap it up for lunch. We'll be back here at 2 for the last 3 presentations.
Yes, thank you.
I think we'll spend more time here.